to hear word of the king. The search for Richard III's final resting place appears to be on firmer foundations today. Beneath the city centre car park, these trenches have revealed the medieval Greyfriars Church, and from there, more evidence has led them to human remains.
We have a man with what appear to be battle injuries who suffered from severe scoliosis, that is curvature of the spine, respectfully but modestly buried in a place of honour in a friary church.
The team behind this dig say it has been mind-blowing. In just 3 weeks, they've uncovered part of the nation's history, which has been parked here for centuries. So far, the pieces fit with some historical accounts of Richard's death and burial after his defeat at the Battle of Bosworth, and could rewrite many of our history books.
Potentially it does change everything in terms of study of the real Richard III, not the Tudor myth.
A 17th generation descendant of the king's sister, Michael Ibsen, has given DNA samples to experts, and they hope to match them with the remains. 527 years after Richard's death, we must now wait at least another 3 months to answer the big question. Anthony Bartram, BBC News,
Possession
Leicester.
looks like it's starting to walk up the battlefield.
So these people we're seeing here are clearly enthusiasts, Joe, and have adopted what I assume is the uniform of people who would have been around at the end of the 15th century.
Yes, it's remarkable to see, isn't it, the costumes. I was calling these people reenactors earlier on, but I got told off. Historians. These are historians who have turned up to play a significant part in this procession. They've been practicing all morning here, Adam. This, what you're seeing at the moment, we've seen this a couple of times already today. These people have been here from so early this morning, practicing, making sure that this looks right and is appropriate, because let's face it, they're not going to get a second chance to do this again.
Let's listen into some of the, I nearly said entertainment, that would be the wrong word, some of the music and pageantry that unfolds as King Richard III's coffin approaches Bosworth. What we are seeing now, Joe, I don't know if you can see these pictures, is a further procession of people coming up towards us, including dignitaries, and there we are seeing the coffin of King Richard III, which is now starting to make its way along that path, surrounded, Joe, by a great number of military personnel.
Yes, so from where I'm standing at the moment, I can see people in the distance coming my way, and I presume they are the people in front of the coffin. Yes, I can see the cadets. Now, these cadets are pulling what's called a bier, and it's pulled by the cadets of the Leicestershire, Northamptonshire and Rutland Army Cadet Force to represent the 21st century military. That's why they have been chosen.
The articulated skeleton, as Richard has explained, was found in what is believed to be the choir of the church. The articulated skeleton found in the choir of the church is of significant interest to us, and Dr. Joe Appleby has carried out a preliminary examination of the remains. And there are 5 reasons for our interest. 1. The remains are in good condition and appear to be of an adult male. 2. The choir is the area reported in the historical record as the burial place of King Richard III. John Rouse reports that Richard was at last buried in the choir of the Friars Minor at Leicester. 3. The skeleton on initial examination appears to have suffered significant perimortem trauma, so near-death trauma, to the skull, which appears to be consistent, although is not certainly caused by, an injury received in battle. A bladed implement appears to have cleaved part of the rear of the skull. 4. A barbed metal arrowhead was found between the vertebrae of the skeleton's upper back. And 5. The skeleton found in the choir has spinal abnormalities. We believe that the individual would have had severe scoliosis, which is a form of spinal curvature. This would have made his right shoulder appear visibly higher than his left shoulder, and this is consistent with contemporary accounts of Richard's appearance. The skeleton does not have kyphosis, a different form of spinal curvature, and the skeleton was therefore not a hunchback. Both sets of remains are now at an undisclosed location where further analysis is being undertaken. I need to be really frank with you that the university has always been clear that any remains would need to be subjected to rigorous laboratory analysis before we confirm the outcome of the search for Richard III. We are not saying today that we have found King Richard III. What we are saying is that the search for Richard III has entered a new phase. Our focus is shifting from the archaeological excavation to laboratory analysis. This skeleton certainly has characteristics that warrant extensive, further detailed examination.
Biological anthropology study many aspects of how we came to be humans as we are now, right from human evolution up to modern times and genetics and so on. My particular area of interest in biological anthropology is studying health and disease in the past. So I've been working with the excavation team at the University of Leicester to look at Richard III's health. So we're not only studying his scoliosis, for example, but I've been looking at intestinal parasites. Parasites obviously have a health impact on the person who was affected by those. Parasites commonly cause malnutrition, for example. But they also tell you about the life that person led. So roundworm is spread by fecal contamination of food. So it shows that Richard's chefs either weren't washing their hands after going to the toilet, or that human waste was being used to fertilise the crops in the fields, which then grew plants that were used in his diet to provide salads and vegetables and so on. So they can help us to understand sanitation in the medieval period too.
And some people will wonder how you know that he had roundworm.
Good question. Well, at the time of his excavation, the archaeologists took samples of soil from his pelvis, where his intestines would have been during life, and they also took control samples from the soil from his skull and from outside the grave, following the protocol that I've sent to many archaeologists in Britain, and we do collaborations together. And I analysed the samples in my lab in Cambridge, and we found that the soil from the pelvis was contaminated with parasite eggs. It had multiple roundworm eggs in it. But the soil from the skull, where we wouldn't expect to find intestinal parasites during life, that had no parasites at all. And the sample from outside the grave, which would show us generalised contamination of the soil from human rubbish at that time, just showed a very scanty level of parasites. So the fact that the pelvic soil shows many parasite eggs shows that that doesn't indicate contamination from later time periods. It indicates that these were the worms that were genuinely in Richard III's intestines at the time of his death.
King Richard III, the last of the long Plantagenet line, rode across this bridge. His first journey to Bosworth he made as King of England. He returned, defeated, slung across a horse, and so ended an era. Never again would an English king lead his forces into battle. As Leicester comes together today and for the next week to commemorate this formerly lost and at times controversial king, we can reflect on what a significant day this is for our city and our county.
You can see now that the gun carriage with the coffin on board is making its way past the crowds through the streets of Leicester from St Nicholas's church, moving along High Street. And many people have brought these white roses with them, and of course they're throwing them towards the police escort, this mounted escort that have come from London specially to help with this. The horses are called Lionheart, Ariel, Temple and Bowrun. They're in full ceremonial regalia, no strangers to big crowds and prestigious occasions, so they won't be spooked by the number of people who've turned out to watch them.